Okay, so we're going to talk about hooks. Now, remember, the hook is the beginning of the paper. It's what grabs the reader's attention and makes the reader want to keep reading your paper. And it comes at the beginning of the introduction paragraph, which is the first paragraph of your essay. And also within that introduction paragraph, you're going to have the thesis statement, okay? But to connect the hook and the thesis statement, you're going to need some way of connecting those ideas. So I like to tell my students that in the introduction paragraph, we have a hook, some connecting information, and then the thesis. The connecting information may be the harder part, but I'm going to give you some examples of some hooks and some thesis statements and how we connect both of those right now. All right, so let's imagine that you are asked to write an essay about sleep and about the effects of good or bad sleep, okay? So every single example I'm going to show you in these example introductory paragraphs relate to sleep, and it's actually the same exact thesis almost in every example. Okay, so let's look at some examples of hooks and all the other information that goes in the introductory paragraph. Okay, so you can start an essay with a hook that is actually a definition of something. So look at my example here. It says, the Longman Academic Dictionary defines sleep as rest for your mind and body, usually at night when you are lying in bed with your eyes closed. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to highlight this yellow. That is my hook, okay? It's a definition straight out of a dictionary, okay? But I need to connect this definition somehow to my point. What is my point? My point is the thesis statement. And remember, the thesis statement is usually at the end of the introduction paragraph. It's usually the last sentence. So if I look right here at the end of it, the last sentence, for this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in accidents, and of developing heart disease. I'm going to make that blue, okay? So then you can see all this information between my hook, that's a definition of sleep, and my thesis, which is my argument of what I'm saying about sleep. I have to connect it somehow. I'm doing that, okay? So let me read the whole thing to you again. The Longman Academic Dictionary defines sleep as rest for your mind and body, usually at night when you're lying in bed with your eyes closed. But sleep is much more than just that. It can be defined as health. Although it may not be easy for everyone to get a good night's sleep, this definition resonates with many since they may have felt the negative effects of not having this restful period. For this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more accidents, and at developing heart disease. So that is my introduction paragraph. I have a hook. It's a definition of sleep. I have my connecting information that connects my thesis to my hook. My thesis is right here at the end. Though this is just one example of a type of hook about the topic of sleep. But practicing it is going to give you the the better ability to do this. Okay. So let's keep looking at some more types of hooks. Okay. Here's another type of hook, and it's a quotation. Okay. You can start a hook with a quotation. So here's one. An old Irish proverb states, a good laugh and a long sleep are the best cures in the doctor's book. Okay, I'm going to highlight this. This is my hook. I'm making it blue. It's an interesting quote. If I see that, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's a best cure in the doctor's book? Are you going to write about sleep? That's interesting. You've introduced it in an interesting way. Okay, and then now let me keep reading. Although it may not be easy for everyone to get a good night's sleep, this quote resonates with many since they may have felt the negative effects of not having this restful period. For this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more accidents, and at developing heart disease. So I'm going to highlight here I forgot to make the hook yellow. The blue is the thesis. And as you can see, it's the same thesis as the one before. So I'm just showing you how you can use different hooks for the same idea. And of course, right here, I have the connecting information, and even the connecting information is similar to the previous example. So now you can really see a definition hook versus a quotation hook. Which kind do you like better? It's your choice. It's whatever you like. Okay, let's keep going. Now, you can also use a rhetorical question as a hook to grab the reader's attention. Now, what is a rhetorical question? A rhetorical question is not really a question. We're not really wanting to know something, some information when someone asks a rhetorical question. Like, for example, when does class start? That's a real question. It starts at 5, right? A rhetorical question is a question that we use to try to convince somebody of something. So we're getting them to agree with us in a way by using this technique. So here, I'm gonna write a paper about sleep deprivation. I want you to agree with my opinion on it. And in order to get you to start thinking about it, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Wouldn't it be nice to decrease your risk of depression, car accidents, and development of heart disease? Wouldn't it be, right? That would be great. That's a rhetorical question. Of course, everybody's going to agree with that. You have to say yes to that. So now I'm starting to get you to think the way I want you to think. And I'm going to start to convince you. So that's my hook. And now here's the connecting information. Fortunately, such solutions exist and they involve sleep habits. Although it may not be easy for everyone to get a good night's sleep, sleep is an integral part of human health. There's my connecting info. And right here's my thesis. As you know, you've seen it before. For this reason, sleep is a cure for major health issues, and without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more accidents, and at developing heart disease. See? Each of these examples, 3 parts: hook, connecting info, and thesis. Hook, connecting info, thesis. Hook, connecting info, thesis. Here's another type of hook. Using a description to describe a scene, or a scenario to describe a scenario, or some sort of dilemma, like a problem that you have, okay? Here we go. Remember, the same topic, sleep, okay? I'm lying in bed. The stars are out and there are no sounds besides the refrigerator making ice inside of my house. Suddenly I realize it's 3 a.m. and I have only 3 hours before my alarm goes off. I start to panic, and the worry makes it so that I have to stare at the bright blue light of my cell phone for another 2 hours before dozing off for just 1 hour. I'm going to have another bad day. This whole thing right here is my hook. I'm being very descriptive, right? I'm using colors, the blue light. I'm using time, 3 a.m. I'm telling you where I'm at, right? In my bed. I'm telling you what I'm hearing, the refrigerator making ice. I'm telling you what I see, and that is just the stars. So it's putting you there into where I'm at in a description. It's setting the scene. It's a scenario, but it's also a problem, right? You can see the dilemma is that it's 3 a.m. and I have to wake up in 3 hours, right? So this is a way to get the reader, whoa, this is exciting, right? This looks like an exciting, what's going to happen? And then you want to keep reading. So here's the connecting info. Although most people understand that sleep is important, this scenario is common for many. Just that. That's my connecting information. And here's my thesis. For this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more car accidents, and at developing heart disease. See, you can see, same thesis, just different hooks. Next one, We can use a startling fact or statement or something that surprises people, that makes them go, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, so here's one. According to a study on sleep deprivation by the Centers for Disease Control, adults who slept fewer than 7 hours each night were more at risk of developing health issues such as obesity and health adverse habits such as smoking. Okay, there it is. That's my fact. There's my statistic or my surprising information. And now maybe you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. Wow, that is really convincing because it comes from the Center for Disease Control. They obviously did a study on it, and this is what they found. And that is so shocking and sad, right? So now you want to know what I'm going to say about that. So here's my connecting information. Although it may not be easy for everyone to get a good night's sleep, this statistic resonates with many since they may have felt the negative effects of not having this restful period. Sound familiar? It's the same connecting information I've been using this whole time almost. For this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more accidents, and of developing heart disease. Boom. There's my thesis, the same thesis I've been using this whole time. I've only really changed the hook. Which one do you like best so far? I don't know. I think I like this scenario. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Another way that you can get somebody interested in reading your paper is by starting with an anecdote or some sort of story. Like, people love stories, right? Put them into a story. Get them interested in what's going to happen. So here we go. Staring up at my ceiling in the middle of the night, I started to wonder how long I was going to feel this way. I hadn't been able to fall asleep at a regular time for a month, and it was starting to have an effect on my mood. That night, I made the decision to fix my insomnia problem before it took over my life. Eventually, I fixed the problem. I can now see a huge change in my mood and overall health. Yeah, it's not like the best story in the world. Maybe it can be improved, but it's a story, it's an anecdote about something I've experienced. So as the writer of this type of hook, you would tell a story about your life or someone you know or something you know, a story you know of. Honestly, I prefer to read stories that my students write of their own lives for these types of hooks because everybody has a story. Okay, so that's it. And now here's my connecting information. Although it may not be easy for everyone to get a good night's sleep, this experience proves that sleep is an integral part of human health. For this reason, sleep deprivation is a major contributor to bad health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, being involved in car accidents, and developing heart disease. There we go. Same thing. Now, we can also start our hooks with a comparison, or in other words, an analogy. Or a simile. It's basically when you compare two things, and it's sort of a great way to start because when you compare two things that are actually very different, it makes people want to know why you're comparing those two things. Okay. All right. You've heard of these things like love is like a rose. You know what? Love, rose. How are you comparing those two? I want to know more about what you're trying to say. So you can do that as an introduction to your paper too, whatever topic it is. So for example, sleep is like medicine, but for others, it is a roller coaster. What? How are you comparing those things? What? I want to keep reading. Okay. Although most people understand that sleep is important, sleep deprivation is common for many. There's my connecting information. For this reason, it is important to understand the relationship between sleep and health, since without it, we are more at risk of depression, of being involved in more car accidents, and at developing heart disease. And there we go. That is our intro, okay, for that. Now, I've shown you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways to write a hook. There are probably many more, okay? And many better examples than what I've given you here. But I hope that this gives you a little bit of an idea of what a hook is and how much freedom you have in playing around with starting a paper. This is the part where you really you can feel creative and be creative, okay? So play around with them. And every time you write an essay, try to use a different hook. Don't use the same one every time. I know when I was in college, I always used the question because it's sometimes the easiest to come up with. But, you know, if everyone's using questions, then those get tiring too. Also, these introductory paragraphs are kind of short. You might see some that are a lot longer, and you'll get to that point. I just wanted to start with a clear example for everyone to see if you're starting off with essays. You can see just the basics of an introduction. All right. So I hope this video was helpful and that you are on your way to writing great hooks.